Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today we're doing something really fun. We're actually decoding a super fascinating entry from a dedicated hobbyist's journal. An aquarist named Ang recently jotted down an entry titled Notes on Fishkeeping, Part 324, and it walks us through this incredibly specific, honestly relatable experience with a little fish known as the Glowlight Dario. We're going to break down the initial confusion about what this creature actually is, the really beautiful reality of the species, and that deeply familiar journey of finally returning to a long-forgotten project. It's just a fantastic case study in how we interact with the hobbies we absolutely love.
Okay, let's dive right into this. When you hear the word glowlight, do you immediately think genetically modified? I really want to put you directly into the author's mindset here. Ang notes right at the top of the journal entry that upon first seeing the Glowlight Dario, the very first thought was, well, it's got to be one of those genetically engineered fish, right? And honestly, if you're even a little familiar with the pet trade, that makes perfect sense based on the name alone. Glowlight. It sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie or, I don't know, a lab experiment? It totally implies something synthetic, like a creature engineered to just pop under heavy aquarium lights. It definitely doesn't sound like a name nature just cooked up on its own.
Which brings us to our first main topic, the glowlight misconception, nature versus science.
Now, Ang's realization process here is genuinely fascinating. Reading the text, you see this massive gap between assumption and reality. The initial assumption? Totally genetically modified. And hey, it is so easy to jump to that conclusion when we see these flashy marketing names in the hobby. But as Ang dug a little deeper and gathered more info, the reality was actually a bit of a shocker. This is a completely natural, tiny fish species. No laboratory beakers, no genetic tweaking, nothing like that. It's literally just a nano fish doing exactly what nature designed it to do, thriving out in its native habitat way before it ever hit the commercial market. It really highlights how a dramatic common name can completely lead our assumptions astray when it comes to animal husbandry.
Let's move on to our next section. A natural nanofish. What's in a name? And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what creature we're actually looking at today. So, according to the journal entry, the formal scientific name of this little guy is danio-choprai, but despite that scientific classification, almost everyone in the hobby just calls it the Glowlight Dario. It is a naturally occurring tiny, or nano, fish species, and it's actually incredibly important to ground our understanding in that real scientific name, danio-choprai. Using the proper taxonomy separates the actual biological reality of the animal from that flashy, kind of misleading common name that caused Ang's confusion in the very first place. When we strip away all those shiny marketing terms, we finally get to appreciate the animal for exactly what it is in the wild.
So how exactly did it earn a crazy moniker like Glowlight if it isn't some lab creation? Well, Ang's journal breaks down the physical descriptors perfectly. First off, it's a tiny nanospecies. That means it stays super small, even fully grown. Second, and this is the big one, it features this absolutely stunning natural neon orange stripe. Nature just provided that incredible, vivid coloration all on its own. Literally zero human intervention. And finally, because of that distinct bright stripe running right down its side, it visually resembles another super popular fish in the hobby, the Glowlight Tetra. So the name is really just a comparative description. They called it a glowlight simply because it looks like a Glowlight Tetra. It's such a great reminder that these common names are often just shorthand for visual similarities.
All right, now that we understand the fish itself, let's explore our final section, the aquarist's journey, a cyclical hobby. Here, we're shifting our narrative focus away from the biology and into the deeply relatable journey of the fish keeper themselves. See, in the past, Ang actually tried to keep the Dario, but as the journal notes, had mixed results. And honestly, anyone who has ever tried keeping delicate nanofish knows the struggle. They can be incredibly particular about water parameters, and feeding them, you often need microscopic live foods and just pristine tank conditions. It can be exhausting. Because of that burnout, Ang actually shifted focus entirely away from nanofish, dedicating years to keeping cichlids instead. Now, cichlids offer a totally different experience. They're usually way bigger, way more robust, and they have these massive interactive personalities. It was a complete change of pace and a much-needed break from the stressful, delicate balance of a nanotank. But that brings us to the present day. Out of all the tiny fish out there, the Dario had just been sitting there on Ang's long-pending list to explore, and now, years later, Ang is finally going back to it. It really goes to show that our hobbies are rarely a straight line, right? They operate in cycles. We step away from frustrating challenges to prevent burnout, we try completely new things, and eventually, when the time is exactly right, we circle back.
So the crucial point is captured beautifully in this exact quote right out of the journal. And perhaps this is the right time to revisit them. This right here, this is the emotional core of Ang's text. It isn't just about clarifying the taxonomy of danio-choprai or marveling at a neon orange stripe. It's about that quiet, personal decision that it is finally time to tackle an old challenge once again. After a long break exploring the chunky, interactive world of cichlids, those mixed results from the past, they just aren't a deterrent anymore. Actually, scratch that. Those past failures are probably what makes coming back to them so incredibly compelling. It's just this beautifully simple resolution to pick up a long-pending goal and give it one more try, but this time with fresh eyes and renewed patience.
And that brings us to the end of our explainer today. Aang's journey with the Glowlight Dario, from that initial confusion about where it came from, to understanding its true wild nature, to stepping away for a completely different experience, and finally, coming back home to it, is something we can all relate to, no matter what our specific hobbies happen to be. So I want to turn this around and ask you, what long-pending passion project is it time for you to revisit? Seriously, think about it. Maybe it's time you took a page right out of Aang's journal, embraced that old challenge, and finally crossed that item off your list. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I really hope this inspired you to go tackle that pending project of yours.